very much, Lorraine. And thank you, everyone, and for your silent clapping. I can't quite hear you because you're on mute, but I'm getting all the love, so thank you. So fantastic. So wonderful to be here in this environment with you. It is very different, running things virtually. But what's really interesting as I've been doing this over the last few weeks with different groups and clients and people is that the energy I feel is actually amplified. It's actually stronger. And I feel at some level Spirit have guided us on this journey to be here at this time, to be connecting in this way. So your heart essence, your soul essence, and your presence here today creates that connection. So give yourselves a bit of a round of applause. Let me see you. Very good. Now this will be two-way today, so I will be asking you some questions, and you've got two ways of responding. You can nod, give me a nod, a head nod, just so I can see your hearing. Fantastic. And also in the chat, if you want to type some responses in, I'll get that as well. So great. Hopefully all of you have been doing well during this whole period that we've been going through. And I know for me, one thing I've been doing a lot of is baking. So the good thing with Zoom is you can't see the muffins that I've been eating the last few weeks. And hopefully, as Lorraine said, you know, putting it on speaker view makes the picture bigger. Hopefully it's not making me look as I really am. So, welcome here today. I know we've got a short time. We've only got about 10-15 minutes, and I really want to share a message that was inspired by Spirit. And this message came up probably about 2 weeks ago. I connected with a cousin of mine who really last year went through some major shifts and challenges in his life. There was a major health crisis where he ended up in hospital. There was relationship issues. And it really all seemed like everything was coming down on him at once. And I'm not sure whether you, if you're human like me, we're on this earth plane, has anyone experienced times where we've just been confronted with challenges? Just give me a head nod or a yes in the chat. Is it easy? Not always easy, is it? But I feel on this spiritual plane, we're being asked to evolve to a new level of being. And today I felt Spirit wanted to share some principles and some essence to help us navigate that path. They on the other side know it's not always easy, but they know that this earth plane contains a richness of energy. It contains a richness that allows us to connect with emotions that we wouldn't even experience if we were on the other side. Those emotions of pain, of suffering, of pure joy and bliss. And we've all had these glimmers of experience. But sometimes on this path, and you know, as I've done work with clients over 20 years with hypnotherapy and counselling and all sorts of modalities, what I understand is that our soul, the essence of us that carries across lifetimes, across incarnations, is omnipresent, omnipowerful, and it has the means to navigate this. So today I want to share a little bit about this essence of what happens when we go through crisis. It's interesting in the Chinese, when the Chinese write the characters for the word crisis, it's actually two characters, and the characters are both risk and opportunity. It's the opportunity or doorway. It almost forms like a gate in the picture for us to step forth. And I feel for some of you here today, you're at that point in life where maybe you're being woken up in a greater way. Maybe you've been on your spiritual path and now something is calling you and you can feel it within you dwelling. If that's you, you can probably type a yes in the chat, or again, give me a bit of a head nod. Just give me a bit of a feel whether you feel this happening. Good, I'm just navigating through my pages. And if it's not, just hold on to what I shared today, because I think it will come through at some point. One of the greatest things is when we go through these challenges. Some people call them the dark night of the soul, that time where everything seems to be happening. It almost relates to the Tower card in the traditional tarot, where things are being broken down. But as I often say to people and to clients, I say, you know, if you have something and it's taken away, what are you left with? Nothing. And in the presence of nothing, what is possible? Everything. So sometimes things get drawn back and taken away so we can rebuild. And it really ties into this spiritual principle that is one of the tenets of, I suppose, spiritualism, which is eternal progress is granted to every soul. You see, once we believe in spiritualism, the ongoing of the soul after this incarnation, we know that we're here for a short time, but we're here to learn, to grow, and to experience. Most of all, we're here to grow. We're here to experience and experiment and take risks and step out of the comfort zone sometimes. Sometimes we'll be pushed. Has anybody been pushed apart from me? Yeah. Sometimes it feels like we've been pushed over a bit of a cliff into the unknown. But on this spiritual path, we're challenged to actually understand and to hold the energy of knowing something better is coming. And where we see this, and there's such a great example, we see it in movies, we see it in the stories that are told in things like Star Wars. There is what Joseph Campbell related to as the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell was an amazing mythologist, sociologist, and studied the archetypes and how the different energies play out in our lives. And he identified that there was a hero's journey. It starts often with a call to adventure. Sometimes it's that little spark that pushes us to embrace a new part of ourselves, to go travelling overseas, to go and start a new job. That call is often there, and it gets louder as we connect with Spirit. But we have to be willing to listen. Another aspect is that once we take that first step, we'll then start walking along a path. Maybe we decide to explore a course, or maybe we want to go overseas and work for a year. So we follow that calling, but sometimes it's not always easy. We come to the threshold. It's almost like we're confronted with barriers and obstacles. Has anyone ever been at the threshold? Just give me a head nod. Make me just tune in to make sure you're with me. So what happens at the threshold? There's an obstacle. We've got choices. Do we overcome it? Do we climb over it? Do we find allies who can help us? Coaches, mentors, healers. But at some point, as we commit to the journey, there is often a supreme ordeal. That supreme essence that comes up to challenge our soul to step beyond what we know and the known to become all that we are. And if you've ever been in that place, whether it's the loss of a loved one and you've gone through the tragedy and having to get through that, whether it's been a relationship breakup and the trauma of moving beyond that, when we look back, we can always say, did my soul learn? Did my soul grow? Did I experience more of who I truly came to be at this time? So my thing is, does the road get easier? Just type something in the chat, someone. It's very quiet in there. Does the road get easier? What are your thoughts? Give me a bit of love. There's a hand gesture like this. I like that. I've never seen that hand gesture, but I know what you mean. No, people are saying no. Okay. The road sometimes doesn't always get easier. But what happens is on this path is that we get better if we allow ourselves to. We often believe our path is to go from A to B. It's a direct line. But I can tell you now, with every person I've worked with in my life, including myself, sometimes the road feels like this. Anybody ever gone round in circles? Yeah. But spirits say it's evolving, it's growing, it's ascending. But here are some things we need to be aware. So I wanted to share a couple of principles and a little bit of an essence from the Jewish Torah. So let me just get a bit of love from those who are in the chat. Some people said, I hope so, which is good. Are you ready for a couple of principles just to finish off to help us navigate this path? Let's see. Kate says yes. Good. Fantastic. Lots of head nodding. I'll take that as a communal yes. So here's what I believe needs to happen. There's really kind of 4 principles. The first is to realize that our path is cyclical. It's an experience where we'll sometimes feel like we're going backwards. But what happens is, as we become better, sometimes we'll notice that what used to push our buttons no longer unsettles us. We often find more peace. We find that those habits that our partner had that really irritated us. Anybody got a partner? I won't ask you if they've got habits that irritate you. I know I've been in relationships where little things have really pushed my buttons. And sometimes that's what relationship is for. For the men in the room, you just have to say, yes, dear. You already know that. So turn around, I see some couples there already saying, yes, dear. But as we grow better, those things don't bother us. We end up finding more compassion. You know, when someone betrays or judges us, which is a big thing on a spiritual journey. I know I've been through moments where connections and relationships have failed and I felt betrayed. But now when that happens, I can actually hold that person in a space of love, hold them in a space of light and wish them the best on their journey, knowing at some level that they were a gift. To ask, what's the gift in that person? What's the gift in that experience? So the growth is in a cycle. The second one is to know that we're always growing and evolving, okay? There is no failure. There is only learning. As we go through each lifetime, and again, in hypnotherapy, when we go into lives between lives and we connect with the soul essence, some souls have been incarnated 50, 40, 30,000 times to experience their lessons. But they're always growing and evolving if they're allowed. Your path, it's your path, not others. We need to step away from comparing ourselves to others. And the final thing I want to share is that often when we come to that threshold, we need to step through. We need to find a greater energy. And I feel there's some of you here, Spirit are telling me there's about 3 or 4 people who are on the midst of a threshold. And in the next 2-3 months, things are going to shift in a big way. And so this part of the message is for you, okay? You know who you are. In the Jewish Kabbalah, they talk about 2 types of fear. The first fear is what we call pashad. And pashad is that fear that is linked to anxiety, that is the fear that causes us to retreat within ourselves when we don't know what's happening. It's that fear that is born of the ego. Has anyone here, and I'll put both hands, ever experienced that fear? Show me 1 hand, 2 hands, or no hands. Yeah, so that's the incapacitating fear that we often, experience as we're growing, as our soul is evolving. But the interesting thing in the Kabbalah, it talks about another fear, which is called Yira. And Yira is this essence or energy of fear that we have, where we have a feeling as though we are rising to inhabit a larger space. So we're growing, we're moving beyond. It's almost we're being encouraged to expand into a greater space. And not through eating muffins, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. The second aspect of Yira is a feeling and embracing that we're coming into the possession of more energy. So think about times where you've been through transformation. Have you come into greater energy? Have you had that feeling that you're being guided, you're being led, you're being pushed, and you just need to trust and go with it? I know there was a point in my life doing mediumship where I ended up at one platform and all of a sudden it was almost like all of the fear and doubt that I used to have in the past got lifted. And Spirit said, here you are, this is what you're meant to be doing. Step in and own this space. And I feel we're all being called to own that space. And the third aspect of Yira is a feeling of being in divine presence. And so Yira is powerful. And I believe that we're at this point, as I finish up today, is to understand that over the next few months, weeks, as we're growing, we have a choice when we come to those little thresholds. It could be communicating something to a partner. It could be actually being authentic with a friend. And that's where we need to step into more Yira, that feeling of expansion, of presence, where we still have fear, but somehow we know we're being held. So I'm going to leave you with that today, just that little understanding. I hope it's useful to you. My real quest to you as you move forward is to start to discern the difference between the ego, fear, and Yira, and call on your spirit, your guides, your helpers to say, I want to experience more of this expansion. And yes, I know it will not always be easy, there will always be fear, but as long as I'm taking a step forward, I'm growing, I'm expanding. So I'm going to leave you with that because Spirit's telling me it's time. And so I hope it's been useful, and thank you for listening. So I'll give you 2 hands. This is sign language for yes, we're all happy. So I hand it back to yourselves, Lorraine.
When the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, oh, let it be. If there is